Everyone at Martinez Tech called her the cat lady. Sarah Chen. Quiet. Always alone. The woman nobody talked to. She wore the same gray cardigan every week, kept her head down in the break room, and never joined us for happy hour. I never thought she'd be the one to save my Christmas, or change my life forever. December 24th. The office was decorated with twinkling lights and fake snow. Someone had hung mistletoe over the copy machine as a joke. The break room smelled like gingerbread cookies that Janet from HR had brought in. Christmas music played softly from someone's desk speaker. Everyone was rushing out, excited about their holiday plans, exchanging hugs and promising to share photos after the break. Me? I was staring at my phone, scrolling through unanswered texts, watching my friends' Instagram stories of their holiday preparations, families gathering, couples kissing under Christmas lights. Everyone had somewhere to be. Everyone except me. My best friend Marcus had just bailed on our annual Christmas bar crawl an hour earlier. We'd been doing it for 5 years straight. Hit every bar on 5th Street, get progressively drunker, end the night at that karaoke place where the owner never checked IDs too carefully. It was our tradition, our way of avoiding the complicated family stuff. But this year, Marcus texted me from the parking lot. Sorry man, Rachel invited me to meet her family. Big step, you know? I can't say no to this. You understand, right? No, Marcus. I didn't understand. Rachel had been around for 3 months. Our friendship was 5 years deep. But I typed back, yeah bro. No worries. Have fun, because what else could I say? That I was terrified of spending Christmas alone for the first time in my adult life? I tried everyone after that. Jake was flying to Miami with his new girlfriend. David had his in-laws coming into town. Even my gym buddy Tom had plans to drive upstate to his brother's place. Every single person in my contacts was busy, wrapped up in their own holiday magic. And my mom? She'd called 3 times that week. Each call starting the same way. Tyler, honey, I know you're busy, but we'd love to see you on Christmas. Your sister is bringing the kids. Dad is making his famous prime rib. It would mean the world to us. Each time, I made an excuse. Work project. Might be coming down with something. Maybe next year. The truth was, I couldn't face them. Not on Christmas. Not on the day that ruined everything. People think family trauma has to be dramatic. Abuse, addiction, violence. But sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's the memory of being 12 years old, sitting around a Christmas tree with your parents and older sister, thinking everything is finally okay. Your parents aren't fighting for once. There's laughter. Your dad is making jokes. Your mom is humming along to Christmas carols. For one perfect day, you think maybe your family isn't broken after all. Then at the end of the night, they sit you down. Your sister already knows what's coming. You can see it in her face. And your parents, with their calm voices and sad eyes, tell you they're getting a divorce, that this perfect Christmas was actually a goodbye, that they'd been planning it for months and wanted one last good memory together. I remember staring at the twinkling lights on the tree, watching them blur through my tears, thinking how cruel it was that they'd made everything seem so perfect just before ripping it apart. How was I supposed to trust happy moments after that? How was I supposed to believe in Christmas magic when it had been used to disguise the worst news of my life? My parents got back together 3 years later. Therapy, they said. We've worked through our issues. We're better now. And maybe they were, but I never shook that feeling. That pit in my stomach during holidays. That voice whispering that any moment of peace could shatter without warning. So I avoided it. Avoided them. Avoided feeling anything too deeply during the holidays. The office was nearly empty now. I could hear the hum of the heating system, the distant buzz of the vending machine. I pretended to work, clicking through emails I'd already read, because going back to my empty apartment felt even more pathetic than sitting in an empty office on Christmas Eve. That's when I heard footsteps. Soft, hesitant. I looked up and saw Sarah from accounting, carrying a stack of folders toward the file room. She always dressed in gray or beige, colors that helped her blend into the walls. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She wore glasses that seemed too big, making her eyes look larger, more vulnerable. Everyone made jokes about her. Bet she has 20 cats. Probably talks to them instead of people. Total weirdo. I heard she's never even been on a date. The jokes were casual, thoughtless. No one was particularly mean about it, but no one was kind either. She was just the weird, quiet woman from accounting that everyone forgot about until they needed their expense reports approved. I'd never stopped to wonder if any of it was true, or if she even cared what people said. She seemed content in her solitude, always having lunch alone with a book, leaving exactly at 5 o'clock. Never participating in office gossip or politics. She paused by my desk when she noticed I was still there. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she smiled. It was genuine. Warm. Not what I expected. There was something knowing in that smile. Like she understood exactly why I was still sitting there. Didn't realize anyone else was still here, she said, her voice softer than I remembered from the few times I'd heard her speak in meetings. You must really love spreadsheets. Or you're avoiding something. I'm familiar with both. I laughed awkwardly. Surprised she'd actually spoken to me. Surprised she'd seen through my excuse so quickly. Nah, just didn't have anywhere to be. Everyone's busy with family stuff, you know? She tilted her head slightly, studying me with those large brown eyes. There was intelligence there, and something else. Recognition, maybe, like she was seeing a reflection of herself. Well, she said slowly, like she was deciding something in real time, I'm making dinner at home tonight. Nothing fancy. Just me and some lasagna I've been craving all week. If you want, you're welcome to join. At least you'd get a decent meal instead of whatever sad takeout you were planning. I froze. The office cat lady was inviting me to Christmas dinner. My first instinct was to say no. Make up some excuse about having plans after all. About needing to catch up on work. About anything that would get me out of this awkward situation. But something in her eyes stopped me. There was no pity there. No judgment. She wasn't inviting me because she felt sorry for the lonely guy at the office. She was inviting me because she understood. Because she was lonely too. And maybe, just maybe, neither of us should be alone on Christmas. I should warn you, she added with a small smirk. I don't actually have any cats. I know what everyone says. Sorry to disappoint. That made me laugh. Really laugh. She knew. She knew what people said and she was joking about it. I felt embarrassed for never bothering to find out the truth. For participating in the isolation through my silence. Yeah, okay, I heard myself saying before I could overthink it. That sounds nice, actually. Thank you. She smiled wider this time, and I noticed she had a dimple on her left cheek. She pulled a post-it note from the folders she was carrying and wrote down her address. Her handwriting was neat, precise. 7 o'clock. Don't worry, I promise the food won't be weird. And there's beer in the fridge if you drink. She handed me the yellow post-it and walked away toward the file room. I sat there for a moment, staring at the address, wondering what I'd just agreed to. Part of me wanted to throw the note away and go home. But a bigger part of me was curious, and maybe a little hopeful. I left the office at 6:30, stopped at a corner store to grab a bottle of wine because showing up empty-handed seemed rude, and drove to her address. It was in a modest neighborhood about 15 minutes from the office. Older buildings, but well-maintained. The kind of place where people actually knew their neighbors. I found her apartment on the second floor and knocked, expecting to hear the sound of a dozen cats meowing on the other side. Instead, I heard barking. Enthusiastic, happy barking. The door swung open and a golden retriever burst through, tail wagging like crazy, nearly knocking me over in his excitement to say hello. Cooper. Down boy. Down, Sarah laughed, grabbing the dog's collar and pulling him back. Sorry, he loves new people. Thinks everyone who comes to the door is here specifically to play with him. I knelt down to pet Cooper, who immediately started licking my face with pure joy. So the rumors about the cats were wrong, huh? Completely wrong, she said, still smiling. I'm actually allergic to cats. But I guess the woman with the overly friendly golden retriever doesn't have the same ring to it. She knew. She knew what people called her and she was laughing about it. I felt a wave of shame wash over me for never bothering to find out the truth. For being complicit in her isolation just by never questioning it. I stepped inside her apartment and stopped. It was beautiful. Nothing like I expected. The walls were painted a warm cream color. There were bookshelves everywhere, filled with novels and art books and travel guides. Soft lighting came from carefully placed lamps. And on the main wall, above a comfortable-looking couch, hung a stunning painting of mountains at sunset, the sky streaked with purples and oranges and pinks. Did you paint that? I asked, unable to look away from it. Yeah, a few years ago, she said, hanging up my coat. Therapy recommended I find a creative outlet. Turns out I'm decent at it, better at painting than I am at small talk anyway. There was something in the way she said it, something that hinted at a story I didn't know yet, but I didn't push. Instead, I followed her into the kitchen, where the smell of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air. The dinner table was set perfectly. Real cloth napkins, not paper ones. Candles in simple holders. Wine glasses even though I'd brought the only wine. She'd made homemade lasagna, garlic bread, and a salad with what looked like homemade dressing. For someone supposedly weird and antisocial, she was an incredible host. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, I said, genuinely touched by the effort she'd put in. I was making it anyway, she said with a shrug. Lasagna tastes better shared. And honestly, I was looking forward to having someone to talk to. Cooper's a great listener but terrible at conversation. We sat down and started eating. The lasagna was incredible. Layers of pasta and cheese and rich meat sauce that probably took hours to make. We talked about work at first. Safe territory. The upcoming project deadlines, the ridiculous office holiday party from the week before where Jim from sales had gotten drunk and tried to photocopy his face. But gradually, the conversation deepened. She asked me about my hobbies, what I did for fun, what I wanted out of life. Real questions. Not the surface-level stuff people ask at networking events. She listened when I answered, asking follow-up questions, remembering details I'd mentioned. I realized I hadn't had a real conversation like this in months. Marcus and I just talked about sports and women and which bars had the best beer specials. My other friends kept things light, fun, uncomplicated. But Sarah was different. She listened like what I was saying actually mattered. She told me about her painting, how she'd always loved art but never pursued it seriously until a few years ago. How she'd take weekend trips to different places just to paint landscapes. How her apartment was full of canvases she'd never shown anyone. Why not? I asked. They're beautiful. You could sell them. I don't paint them to sell, she said softly. I paint them to feel something. To process things. Selling them would feel like giving away pieces of myself. There was weight in those words. A history I didn't understand yet. Cooper had settled at her feet under the table, occasionally nudging her leg for attention. We finished the lasagna and she brought out dessert, a tiramisu she'd made that morning. As we ate, she looked at me with those thoughtful eyes and asked quietly, "Can I ask you something? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But why are you alone on Christmas?" I hesitated. The honest answer felt too heavy, too vulnerable to share with someone I barely knew. But something about the moment, the warmth of her home, the way she looked at me without judgment, made me want to tell the truth. My family is complicated. I started slowly, choosing my words carefully. When I was a kid, my parents fought constantly. Every holiday was tense. You never knew if dinner would be peaceful or if someone would storm out. Christmas was the worst because there was all this pressure to be happy and perfect, and we were anything but. Sarah nodded, not interrupting, just listening. The year I turned 12, I continued, my voice getting quieter, everything was different. My parents weren't fighting. They were laughing together, joking around. My sister and I couldn't believe it. We thought maybe they'd finally figured things out. That Christmas was perfect. Like something out of a movie. We opened presents, had this amazing dinner, played board games as a family. I remember thinking this was how it was supposed to be. This was what a real family felt like. I paused, the memory still sharp after all these years. Sarah waited patiently. At the end of the night, they sat us down, told us they were getting a divorce, that they'd been planning it for months, that they wanted one last good Christmas together before everything changed. I laughed bitterly. Turns out the perfect day was actually a goodbye. They'd been faking it the whole time, making everything seem okay when they were really falling apart. Sarah's expression softened with understanding. Not pity, understanding. After that, I couldn't trust happy moments anymore, I admitted. Especially during the holidays. It felt like any second, everything could shatter. My parents got back together a few years later. They're fine now, actually. Better than before. But I can't shake that feeling, you know? That pit in my stomach during Christmas. So I avoid it. Avoid them. It's easier to be alone than to risk feeling that kind of disappointment again. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was contemplative. Sarah took a sip of her wine, her eyes distant for a moment. That makes sense, she said finally. Trauma doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes the quiet betrayals hurt the most because no one else understands why you can't just get over it. The way she said it made me realize she knew exactly what I meant, that she had her own quiet betrayals she was carrying. What about you? I asked gently. Why are you spending Christmas alone? She was quiet for a long moment, tracing the rim of her wineglass with her finger. When she spoke, her voice was steady but there was an ocean of pain beneath it. My parents passed away 4 years ago, she said. Car accident. They were driving home from a Christmas party when a drunk driver hit them head-on. They died on impact. I was 26. I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to say something but nothing seemed adequate. But it wasn't the worst thing, she continued, still staring at her glass. 2 years before that, my husband and I lost our son. He was 3 years old. Liam. He had blonde hair and the biggest laugh you've ever heard. He loved dinosaurs and ice cream and splashing in puddles. My hand froze halfway to my wineglass. Time seemed to stop. This woman, this quiet woman everyone dismissed as weird, had lost her child, had buried her son. And I'd never known. None of us had known. It was a car accident too, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was driving. We were going to the grocery store. Just a normal Saturday morning. A truck ran a red light and hit us on the passenger side, where Liam's car seat was. The doctors said he didn't suffer, that it was instant. They thought that was supposed to comfort me. Tears were running down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. Sarah noticed and reached across the table, putting her hand on mine. I'm sorry, I managed to say. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Thank you. she said softly. The grief. It consumed everything. My husband and I, we tried to support each other, but we were both drowning. Every time he looked at me, I saw blame in his eyes, and every time I looked at him, I felt guilt. We never said it out loud, but we both wondered if things could have been different. If I'd left 5 minutes earlier, if I'd taken a different route, if I'd been more careful. She pulled her hand back and wiped her own eyes. We lasted 8 months after Liam died. Then he moved out. Said he couldn't breathe in the same house where all of Liam's things were. Where his room was. We finalized the divorce a year later. Haven't spoken since. And your parents? I asked quietly. Died 2 years after that. I was just starting to rebuild my life. Started painting again. Got Cooper. Began to remember what happiness felt like. Then I got the call about the accident. Suddenly I was alone. Completely alone. No parents, no husband, no child. Just me and a dog in an empty apartment. The weight of her story hung in the air between us. My problems felt so small in comparison. I'd been avoiding my family because of one bad memory, one moment of betrayal. She'd lost everything. Everyone. And yet here she was, making lasagna, inviting lonely coworkers over, finding ways to keep living. How do you do it? I asked. How do you keep going after all that? She smiled sadly. Some days I don't know. Some days I wake up and the weight of it all feels impossible. But I learned something through therapy, through all the grief counseling and support groups. Staying stuck in the past doesn't honor the people we've lost. It just steals more time from us. She leaned forward, her eyes intense now. Can I tell you something I learned? Something I wish I'd learned earlier? Don't let the fear of future pain stop you from living now. I spent so long drowning in what I'd lost that I almost forgot how to live. I isolated myself, pushed everyone away, convinced myself that being alone was safer than risking more loss. But you're still alone, I said, not unkindly. By choice now, not by fear, she corrected. There's a difference. I'm alone because I'm still figuring out how to let people in again. Not because I'm running from something. You, though, you're running. Your family is still here. They want you there. They love you. And you're wasting years avoiding them because of one bad memory, one moment of pain. Her words hit me like a physical blow. She was right. God. She was so right. Don't waste the time you have, she said, her voice firm but kind. Trust me. You'll regret the moments you didn't spend with them far more than any awkward dinner or uncomfortable conversation. Loss teaches you that. It's the ultimate lesson in what actually matters. I sat there, processing everything she'd said. This woman had been through hell. Had lost her child, her marriage, her parents. Had every reason to be bitter, closed off, angry at the world. Instead, she was sitting here, sharing her wisdom with me. Trying to save me from my own self-imposed isolation. They invite me every year, I said quietly. My mom calls multiple times. Leaves voicemails. Sends texts with pictures of what she's cooking. My sister sends me photos of my nieces and nephews that I've barely spent time with. Then why haven't you gone? Sarah asked gently. Because I'm terrified, I admitted. Terrified that I'll walk in there and it'll be perfect and happy and then something will happen and it'll all fall apart again. Or worse, terrified that it'll be fine and I'll realize I've wasted 5 years being scared of nothing. Both of those are better than wasting more years, Sarah said. Trust me on this. We sat in silence for a moment. Cooper had wandered over and put his head in my lap, sensing the heavy emotion in the room. I stroked his soft fur absently. It's 9:30, I said, checking my phone. They probably haven't even had dessert yet. My mom makes everything late because she's always fussing over the food. Sarah raised her eyebrows. So what are you still doing here? I couldn't just show up, I protested. I told her I had other plans. She'll ask questions. It'll be weird. Your mother will be thrilled to see you, Sarah said firmly. Trust me, mothers don't care about weird. They care about having their children home. I looked at her, this incredible woman who'd opened her home and her heart to me, who'd shared her deepest pain to help me see my own mistakes. Will you come with me? She blinked in surprise. What? Come with me to my parents' house, please. I don't think I can do this alone. For a moment, I thought she'd say no, that she'd used up all her emotional energy for the night. But then she smiled. Let me grab my coat. The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of nervous energy and second-guessing and Sarah's calm presence beside me, reminding me to breathe. We pulled up to my childhood home and I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the house. It looked the same. 2 stories, painted blue, Christmas lights hanging from the gutters. Through the front window, I could see the Christmas tree twinkling, shapes moving inside, the glow of the fireplace. It looked warm, safe, like home. You can do this, Sarah said quietly, and I'm right here with you. I nodded, took a deep breath, and got out of the car. My hand shook as I rang the doorbell. I could hear noise inside. Laughter, children squealing, then footsteps approaching. The door opened and my mom stood there. She was wearing the apron I'd given her years ago, the one that said kiss the cook. Her hair was grayer than I remembered. When she saw me, her face went through an entire spectrum of emotions in 3 seconds: confusion, shock, recognition, and then pure, overwhelming joy. "Tyler?" Her voice cracked. "Tyler." She launched herself at me, wrapping me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. I heard my dad's voice from inside. "Who is it, honey?" Then he appeared in the doorway and froze, his eyes going wide. "Oh my God, you came." My sister appeared next, screaming loud enough to wake the neighborhood. "Tyler's here." Tyler actually came. She ran over and threw her arms around both me and my mom, and suddenly I was drowning in family, in love, in all the things I'd been avoiding for 5 years. When they finally let me breathe, I turned to Sarah, who was standing awkwardly behind me on the porch. "Everyone, this is Sarah. She's a friend from work. She convinced me to stop being an idiot and come home." My mom immediately pulled Sarah into a hug. "Bless you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Bless you for bringing my boy home." My dad shook Sarah's hand warmly, thanking her repeatedly. My sister hugged her too, whispering thank you in her ear. Within minutes, Sarah was being ushered inside, handed a glass of wine, bombarded with questions about how she knew me and what she did for work and did she like pecan pie because they had 3 pies in the kitchen. I stood in the doorway of my childhood home, watching my family fold this stranger into their midst like she'd always belonged there. My 2 nieces, 7 and 5, were already showing her their new toys. My nephew, barely 2, had toddled over and grabbed onto her leg. Cooper would have fit right in, I thought absently. My dad came up beside me, putting his hand on my shoulder. "We missed you, son. So much." "I'm sorry," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry I stayed away so long." "You're here now," he said simply. "That's what matters." We stayed until almost 2 a.m. I played board games with my nieces, let my nephew climb all over me like I was a jungle gem, ate 3 slices of pecan pie, listened to my dad's terrible jokes that I'd somehow missed, watched my mom fuss over Sarah, making sure she had enough to eat, that she was comfortable, that she knew she was welcome anytime. My sister pulled me aside at one point, nodding towards Sarah who was laughing at something my dad said. "She's special. Don't screw this up." "We're just friends," I protested. My sister gave me a look. "Sure you are. Just like mom and dad were just friends before they started dating." I watched Sarah interact with my family. She was completely at ease now, her shy awkwardness from the office completely gone. She was funny, engaging, kind. She helped my mom clear dishes without being asked. She sat on the floor to play with my nieces. She listened intently when my dad told his long, rambling stories about his time in the Navy. This woman, this incredible, strong, beautiful woman that everyone at work dismissed as weird. She'd saved me tonight, saved me from my own fear and isolation. And I was starting to realize she was saving me in other ways too. When we finally left, my mom hugged me again at the door. "Please don't wait so long next time," she whispered. "Please, Tyler. We love you so much." "I won't," I promised. And I meant it. In the car on the way back to Sarah's apartment, I looked over at her. "Thank you. For everything. For inviting me over. For sharing your story. For coming with me. For everything." She smiled. "You're welcome. How do you feel?" "Lighter," I said honestly. "Like I've been carrying this weight for years and suddenly it's gone. Or at least smaller." "Good," she said. "That's how it should feel." I pulled up to her apartment building but neither of us moved to get out of the car. "Sarah," I said slowly, "would you want to get coffee sometime? Like, not as a work thing. As a date thing?" She turned to look at me. Surprise and something else in her eyes. "Hope. Maybe. I'd like that," she said softly. That was 6 months ago. Coffee turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekend trips. Weekend trips turned into me keeping a toothbrush at her apartment and her keeping clothes at mine. She taught me how to paint, though I was terrible at it. I taught her how to cook something other than lasagna, though she insisted her lasagna was superior to anything I made. I went to every family gathering that year. Thanksgiving at my sister's house. Easter at my parents'. Random Sunday dinners just because. And Sarah was always by my side, fitting into my family like she'd always been there. My mom started calling her directly to chat. My nieces asked when Aunt Sarah was coming over. Even my dad, who was usually reserved with strangers, opened up to her about things he'd never talked about before. At work, things changed too. People started actually talking to Sarah, inviting her to lunch, including her in conversations. It turned out when you took the time to know her, she was funny and smart and had the best stories. The cat lady nickname faded away, replaced by her actual name. The next Christmas rolled around. We were back at my parents' house, the same house where I'd shown up desperate and broken a year earlier. But everything was different now. I was different. The tree sparkled in the corner. My nephew was attempting to sneak cookies from the kitchen when he thought no one was looking. My nieces were arguing about which Christmas movie to watch next. My dad was showing my brother-in-law his new grill in the garage. My mom was in the kitchen, orchestrating the meal with the precision of a military general. And Sarah was beside me on the couch, her hand in mine, laughing at something my sister said. I looked around at all of it. The chaos, the noise, the love. Everything I'd been avoiding for 5 years because I was too scared to risk being hurt again. And I realized Sarah was right. The time I'd wasted, the moments I'd missed, they hurt far more than any potential disappointment ever could. I squeezed Sarah's hand and she looked at me, questioning. I just smiled and kissed her forehead. She smiled back, understanding passing between us without words. Later that evening, after the presents were opened and the meal was eaten and the dishes were done, I called for everyone's attention. My hands were shaking. I'd been planning this for weeks, carrying the ring in my pocket for days, waiting for the right moment. I want to say something, I announced, my voice louder than I intended. The room went quiet. My mom looked worried. My dad raised his eyebrows. My sister had a knowing smile on her face. I turned to Sarah, who was looking at me with confusion and something else, something hopeful. I got down on one knee in front of her, pulling the small velvet box from my pocket. Her hands flew to her mouth. My mom gasped. I heard my nieces start whispering excitedly. Sarah, I began, my voice shaking but determined. A year ago, I was the most miserable person I knew. I was lonely and scared and running from everything that mattered. You invited me into your home, shared your story with me, taught me that running from fear isn't the same as living. You showed me that love is worth the risk. That family is worth the risk. That happiness is worth the risk. Tears were streaming down her face now. Down my mom's face too. Even my dad looked misty-eyed. You make every single day better just by existing in it, I continued. You're the bravest person I've ever met. You've been through hell and you still choose kindness. You still choose to open your heart. You taught me how to do the same. I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me? For a moment that felt like an eternity. Sarah just stared at me. Then she nodded, tears falling freely. Yes. Yes, of course yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger and she pulled me up, kissing me while my family erupted in cheers. My mom was openly sobbing now. My dad was clapping. My sister was recording the whole thing on her phone. My nieces were jumping up and down, screaming about being flower girls. Sarah pulled back from the kiss and whispered, "Just for me. I love you." "I love you too," I whispered back. "Thank you for saving me." "You saved me too," she said. We saved each other. That night, as we drove back to what had become our shared apartment, Sarah's engagement ring catching the light from passing street lamps, I thought about how life changes. How the people we dismiss might be the ones we need most. How the moments we run from might be the ones worth fighting for. Everyone used to call her the weird cat lady. The woman nobody talked to. The woman nobody knew. But she was the bravest person I'd ever met. She'd survived unimaginable loss and still chose to live. Still chose to love. Still chose to open her door to a lonely stranger on Christmas Eve and change his entire life. That Christmas, I learned that second chances aren't just real. They're worth fighting for. That the best gifts in life don't come wrapped in paper and bows. They come wrapped in courage and kindness and the willingness to take a risk on love. They come from opening your heart even when you're terrified. From showing up even when it's easier to run away. Sarah taught me that fear will always whisper that staying safe is better than risking pain. But she also taught me that the real tragedy isn't getting hurt. It's never taking the chance at all. It's spending your life protecting yourself from pain by avoiding everything that makes life worth living. So don't let fear steal your chance at happiness. Don't waste years running from the people who love you. Don't miss out on your own life because you're too busy protecting yourself from hypothetical heartbreak. Take the risk. Show up. Open your heart. You never know who might be waiting on the other side, ready to change everything. End. What did you think of this story? Comment your rating from 1 to 5 below. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next one.